Hello, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Since 2016, I've been answering your questions, giving advice and inspiration to countless gamers. Here, you can ask questions in the comments and get your own videos as an answer. So I encourage you, enjoy by all means. But come back to visit with your friend, the Dungeon Tutor. Hello, friends. I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Today, I am dipping back into the world of criticism. Yes, indeed. People want to know what games are good, what games are particularly good at. And I am here for you with a bit of dungeon criticism. Now, as the Dungeon Critic, I'm going to highlight this game that you've likely never heard of before. It's a bit obscure, but this will be a good one to start out our critical series. This game is a one-page role-playing game called Los Diez, or The 10. Now, I have spoken with the creator of this game. He is my podcasting partner, Geeky Hoody. And even though I know him, I'm still going to give an objective review of this game, so pay attention. The idea behind Los Diez is that back in the day, I'd say the 70s, there was a whole run of movies called luchador movies. And luchadors, Mexican wrestlers, would wear their wrestling masks, but they would put on suits. And they would record themselves fighting monsters using their wrestling skills to take down whatever the monster theme was for that particular movie. And was it silly? Yes indeed. They would fight using weapons, they would eventually win and go away happy. The concept of Los Diez not only refers to the idea of a kind of a family of 10 superstar luchas who oversee your characters, but also the fact that you use a 10-sided die for everything in the game. Which is pretty fair warning, I would say. Making up a character is extremely simple, but you do want a phone with you. To do that, you go and you Google a random word generator. And that's actually not hard. Just Googling it will bring up a serviceable random word generator quite easily. And with that, you have the primary tool that you need to make a luchador. You just select a word or a few words possibly at random. We have, in the one that I'm using, I have found the word outside, feminist, or direction. I want to make a luchador based on one of those words. Direction sounds interesting. Feminist could be tricky, because there's a lot of macho in lucha. Although I'm sure you could be a rudo, a heel wrestler, overly effeminate, in contradiction to the culture. Or outside. Outside's a little tricky. Direction could be interesting, though. So, if we then translated direction into Spanish, and we just enter direction in Spanish. Because, admittedly, I don't speak Spanish very well. Only a little bit. And that is dirección. D-I-R-E-C-C-I-O-N. I am the direction. I am the way. I am probably posturing myself as kind of like a cult leader. I am the direction. You will follow me. Not too bad. So after I've created my, and that is my name, by the way, that is, my character is El Dirección. So I then look to the other players and I say, okay, I need 3 moves based on my character. And they come up with your moves. You do get to veto if they make something silly or way outside of what you're comfortable with. You do get veto power, but ultimately you'll want 3 signature moves. And those moves should generally tie in. So the direction, what is it? Well, one of my moves could be that I confuse people in which way they're going. Aha, so I play on people's minds. It's not bad. If let's say, I'm doing this all extemporaneously, mind you, but if, say, I suddenly reach behind me and I pull out an arrow sign or a street sign with an arrow, and I whack somebody with it, that would work, possibly, so I might let that go through. And also, the way. I need something, a move like the way. Like the expression, get out of the way. So perhaps my move is to just walk on somebody and then push them over and keep walking on top of them as my finishing maneuver. And we could call it my way or the highway, perhaps. That might be fun. So we come up with 3 moves from my friends. If you don't have as many friends, maybe you could probably help that. But yes, you need 3 moves. You need a signature weapon. Apparently, that's kind of a thing from those movies, is that everybody had a weapon. Maybe it was a briefcase that they styled themselves as a businessman or something else. But in this case, a sign, an arrow sign would be ideal for this character, sure. Then we decide if we are a Technico or a Rudo. Technico, somebody who uses moves, and therefore is a babyface or a hero character. And Rudo, somebody who uses brawling and cheats, they are the heels. Once you've made that decision up, you have 10 hit points and you are ready to go. So, how do you play the game? It's really simple. This is based off of another role-playing game called Anime Campaign, which is very, very similar, just uses a 20-sided die instead. And this one, it's very simple. You roll a 10-sided die. If you roll a 1 to 3, you failed. If you roll a 1, you failed spectacularly. A 2 or 3, you failed. If you roll higher than that, you succeed to some degree. 4 or 5, you just succeeded. If you roll a 10, critical success. You probably hit your finishing maneuver, depending on who you're fighting. But that is how the game works. Nothing too complicated, nothing to add, nothing to subtract. Every time is another die roll. That is simplicity. That is making it up as you go along and coming up with the solutions of what does this mean in this context is going to largely be on the game master and the players together to tell the story. Now, in a proper luchador movie, apparently, the band of luchadors the story is about will find themselves confronted by some sort of a monster or problem. The suggested ones in here include things like zombies, vampires, and werewolves, but also escaped gorillas or Martians. Yeah. So you can be facing down random monsters and telling a story much in the tradition of those kind of movies, or you can just have a wrestling match, and there are some rules for doing that. Basically, you create a map, or have a map prepared if you are planning this game, and then you take the miniatures or icons for your various characters and put them out, and when you do a move, you attack the closest opponent to yourself. And then you roll and see what happens. It's just that simple. It's very, very easy to do. And if you're fighting against the forces of villainy, each of the monsters has only 5 hit points. And they only do 1 point of damage if they succeed, anything higher than a 3. So they don't do as much damage as your characters do, your heroes. But if you yourself roll, and you roll very high, say you roll a 10, you could do 5 points of damage, which is enough to beat one of those common monsters. So you then execute your finishing maneuver very dramatically. If you rolled instead 8 or a 9, you're going to connect with a very strong move, possibly some sort of a suplex or a big slam, what would commonly be called a high spot, and you would do 3 points of damage instead of just 2. And your opponents would be in greater pain. There are suggestions on what that could look like. for those who don't use wrestling. But if you love wrestling, feel free to throw your own maneuvers in and just make sure that it fits a certain sense of scope and scale. And you're ready to go. Now, there are two different charts on the back of the sheet, one for the technikos and one for the rudos. The rudos are all about how they cheat to win. They cheat in order to win. That's the story they tell. The technikos actually have maneuvers and moves that they use, and they describe that too. The finisher for a technico is whatever their signature is. The finisher for the rudos is usually smashing somebody with a steel chair from the audience. But that is the flow of the game. It is really that simple. It is not a serious heavyweight game. It is not a critical takedown of lucha wrestling. It is celebrating this kind of an interesting little way that the luchadors were able to put together action movies based on their characters. And that's kind of an interesting idea. This is a pay-what-you-will game, so the value is as high as you want to make it. If you throw $1 in, though, you get a page with a quick and easy game that you can play at any time, which puts the value up quite high. I wish that it included more about the lore behind lucha wrestling, because I didn't know any of it, and I wouldn't have been able to tell you half of what I just did if I hadn't talked to the game creator. That being said, if I didn't know that, then I would use this for a wrestling show and have occasional monsters show up while my players are also playing against other wrestlers. That could be interesting, I suppose. There's some things that you can do with this, but mostly it's a quick, fun, silly little game involving some fun wrestling. If you're into wrestling, this seems like it's a quick and easy game to just pull out and be able to play over the, I'd say, about an hour or two of gameplay for a full session. Is it good mechanically? Well, there are some problems to it. The system is so abstract that there's really no reward for good thinking. One thing follows another at total randomness. So even if you have everything on your side and you roll a 2, you're still going to miss. The dice sometimes know no mercy. If your die is working against you, you're going to have kind of a long night, as I experienced. But the odds are weighted in your favor of success, and as a result, you can exercise all of that whimsical violence that comes along with lucha wrestling. And if you know anything about wrestling, you're going to have a much better time with this, rather than going by the rote descriptions in the chart on the back of the game. You can instead insert moves with relative strength and power, and soon your characters may be curb stomping and pile driving and power bombing away, rather than just suplexes and a slam. And it's a fun little game. As a result, what do I grade it at? Well, as far as graphical overview and artistry, the layout is sufficient. There is one little bit of art on it, which does look nice. It does capture the theme. So I would give that 4 stars. Fine editing, just as much art as you might want. Not bad at all. As far as writing, it is perfectly competent. There's no graphical or major editing errors in it. It's readable. The layout is done competently, so I will give that a 5 for being completely effective. As far as the charts and tables being outlined, the actual rules and mechanics are easy to grasp and understand. There are no holes except for the fact that, again, it's completely divorced from your characters having any particular skill. Everybody is just as good as anybody else, which lends kind of a little bit of a cartoonish aesthetic to the physics of it. But it is designed to do what it does, which is be fun, be silly at times, but also just be something you don't have to think too hard about and just revel in the chaos. So in there, I'll give it a 4 as well. All told, with the value being a skyrocketing 5, if you pick it up for next to nothing, you could do that. If you want to throw a few extra bucks in to encourage an indie developer, by all means do that as well. The publishing company is Moongate Exploration Company, and they are working on putting out a variety of games, both themselves and ones that supplement other game systems. So they're one of the good guys in gaming systems, I think. So that is my critique. In the end, it is a 4-star game for what you get out of it. If you are looking for something serious and heavyweight, this is not the game for you. And I would tell you as much. But if you're looking for a fun, silly little wrestling game that can occupy a couple of hours and let you play crazy over-the-top luchadors, you could do a lot worse. This is available currently at DriveThruRPG if you are interested. And if you are, tell them the Dungeon Tutor sent you. I'd appreciate that, and he'd probably get a kick out of it too. So, that's my review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And stay tuned. I'm going to be doing a lot of reviews because I've got a lot of games that need a bit of criticism. So, until that next time, my friends, hopefully to see you again. But if you have any questions or anything you want me to review, leave in the comments below. I'll be happy to do that for you and happy to make a video reviewing your game or a game that you think that deserves it. Maybe you're curious about it, or maybe you want to see if I thought the same as you did. Either way, I'm good for it. So until that next video, my friends, sometime between then and now, I hope that you, yes, you, get a chance to roll some dice, play some games, have some fun, but stay safe out there, friends. Until that next time, farewell.